Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm Grayson Creely. This is my show. I got my two esteemed guests here. I got Aaron and I got Chris.
All right, we got Grayson Creely here. Grayson is a great musician. He's an audio engineer, producer, entrepreneur. Does a lot of things, but that's just scratching the surface. But yeah, why don't we have you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you've been into lately.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Let's see here, where to start. I'm a music maker. Been stuck in Houston for almost a cool decade now, and been looking at getting out there in the world a little more. And been hanging out here in Austin, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. we might come here more often. I have a studio in Houston, and we've managed to stay afloat during this pandemic and keep the vibes going and releasing content.
Yeah.
So we're trying to push the train forward and get a space out here and open our doors to the artists of Austin.
Awesome. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, we like to hear that.
Everyone. Yeah, I guess I'm curious. So yeah, tell us a little bit. I think you have an interesting kind of like the studio you have there and like kind of the business model around it's really interesting. You mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. It all just comes from addressing the problems that exist, and I think everybody's or most small recording studios situation. The reality is sometimes you have great months, and sometimes you don't get a lot of business that month, and maybe you're working on your own stuff, so it's cool. You're still pushing it forward, but every business likes security. Everybody needs a little security, so we brainstormed and tried to come up with a different solution to where we could just make it happen without having to worry so much.
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen to involve any, as far as like production and all that kind of stuff, did that happen to involve any like show recordings or like any sort of like sound stage type stuff? Did you end up working with any of that during the pandemic?
We have done some live streams. We've definitely been transitioning to working more with live streams. It's been interesting, because I guess breaking down the model a little bit, essentially we started a membership service with our studio, where artists pay a flat fee monthly to come in and record, and it's something that they can bake into their monthly budget, something affordable. And in turn, they get to work with a producer, which is me or, right now, my associate Hidalgo. It's cool because they get a good deal, and they get to come in regularly, so they get to keep chipping away at that album that they're working on. Albums don't get made in a week, in a studio. They can,
They can, but don't put your money on it.
They have, but
they
generally.
can, but I think we all kind of know that art form has been slipping away. It's much more rare to find musicians that come in and just really have it down like they used to,
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I mean, another thing is that people compose, like, they use the studio like an instrument, and so much of sound now is textures and sounds. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think one of the exciting things when you first told me about it is because it's like, you know, plenty of people, we got home studios and whatnot, but acoustics are bad because they're in a, you know, a tiny little bedroom, you know, and we're all limited by the gear that we have. It's like you just got a little Scarlett or whatever, just your little interface, or maybe an SM58 mic. And so it's nice to have the ability to kind of just like book a little bit of time at a studio with a nice set of gear and, you know, some people who know how to use it, who are specialized, they know the room. And then I was just telling Chris, you know, I always have trouble recording, like tracking my own vocals because it's like, you know, I got to hit play, make sure all the right tracks and do all of the engineer stuff. And then I have to run over to my mic and have my headphones on and like record the vocals. And I do one take, go back, was that the take? Go back to another take. You know, it's just really frustrating, but it's like cool. It's like, oh, okay, I could just pay a month. Because usually, I mean, that's the other thing is like studio time adds up. And it can be real expensive because of that, you know, feast or famine business model that currently is going. It's like you need to upcharge because you got to make enough to get you through the lean months. And so, but this gets rid of that. You don't need to charge as much because you're getting regular work.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but while, you know, I just spent all this time in my room working on a track. Now I can bring it in and just like book a time and just kind of like, okay, cool. Every few weeks I can run some shit through some nice gear. I can get some advice from some people, you know, like your mix is a little this, a little that, you know, and just help recording things, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, I also like what you said about the sound design, you know, because sometimes you just, you know, you can literally spend a couple hours tweaking a sound, you know what I mean? And you need that kind of time, like as an artist, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you're constantly in these like pressure situations in studios where time is money, and it's a lot of money, you know what I mean? And every
Yes.
minute that you spend fucking off with that synth is, you know, it's you know, it's a huge opportunity cost. And I think artists have been having difficulty reconciling that. They know that they want to upgrade their level of production, right?
Mm-hmm.
In their music, but they're having a tough time committing to the prices, you know, to consistently paying $75 an hour or more, you know.
Yeah.
To getting their stuff done. And
I mean, it's
everybody that works at our studio, we're all artists, you know.
mm-hmm.
We were artists first, you
Yeah.
know. When we were young, the business didn't matter, you know. The art did, you know. Or just
Right.
just making it solely for the love and the passion. And that's where we're coming from. We know what artists, you know, what would be nice if artists had, you know, because we were in those same positions. And ultimately, as an artist, I opted to start my own studio, you know. I worked in a few studios for a few years, and it wasn't long before I was like, I need my own situation, you know? And
yeah.
I've always, perhaps to a fault, been the commander of my own ship, you know?
Aye.
But,
We like that here at Pirate Utopias. Yeah.
yeah, you know, but, you know, to hell with it, just keep driving forward, you know, and keep pushing, and I think perseverance is going to help us see it through, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that, because, and it gets back to something, too, is that a lot of artists now, they don't have record labels. They're, like, independent artists. Or if they do have labels, they're indie labels. It's very small. So, yeah, I think it's only right that we should find a studio situation that is geared for that. Because right now, the studios are old. You know, it's kind of the same thing with, like, people are using Pro Tools. Like, Pro Tools was designed for guys who had been mixing on big-ass boards. And the thing is, newer DAWs, like Ableton and Cubase and stuff, they're designed for people to work at home, you know, or just be creative with it. And so there's a lot more crazy stuff. And I think it's a similar thing with like studios. They're designed for when you had $100,000 budgets, you know, or whatever for your album. Nowadays, people are doing it for 10,000 or less, you know.
Well, and here's the thing about these big studios. It's kind of natural for musicians to just keep acquiring gear as they keep making more money. You know, it's called reinvesting in your business, and that's what everybody's gonna justify it as,
That's
right?
what we call it, yeah.
But
I have a bunch of tea. I completely
Yeah.
understand you.
You have a bunch of gear too.
There's some,
it's called gassing. You know, for those that don't know, gear acquisition syndrome.
Yes.
We all got it bad. And the crazy thing is some of the, you know, a lot of these big studios, you know, when you become cool with like the owners and stuff, and they see what music you're bringing to the table, they're willing to give you pretty good deals. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of great reputable studios here in this town, you know, and that are just awesome people. You know, like 512. You know, in my limited experience with them, they've been, you know, really cool, really
awesome guys. Yes.
You know what I mean? And that exists too in Houston with Sugar Hill, and you know, musicians live by a code, and everybody kind of knows how it is. So, yeah, it's almost like there's like an intimidation factor with that much gear, you know. And I think it's okay for some of that to be a little over some artist's head or over their needs, you know. You can't optimally use a great studio until you're really ready to use it. You know what I mean? Like
That's real.
You know, as even as the artist, you know, knowing what gear is there, knowing what to use, why to use, having enough time to experiment with that gear, because that's the other thing, right? And that's the thing that really adds to your cost. Like, if you're trying to make a good album, you're playing with all these tones and colors and stuff, right? You actually need to spend a lot of time plugging your, you know, if it's your vocal tape, for instance, plugging that into a bunch of stuff and seeing what just really glues and fits, right? When you're pressured and you're on the clock, it's like, plug it into the first thing, record, pray to God that's the fucking take.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then, okay, let's go on to the guitars. You know, and yeah, diamonds are cut under pressure, but you know, also having that time to explore is you know what's gonna birth a whole bunch of creativity.
Yeah.
So we're literally just trying to give artists more time, you know.
Yeah.
The thing that I have always seen that's been the biggest missing link in my scene in Houston, and I'm not sure how it is out here, but the biggest thing missing in a recording environment is the producer. It's like in so many situations that I see, it's the artist working directly with the sound engineer, right? And a lot of artists are trained to be their own producer nowadays, right? Because
Yes. Efficiency,
profit, you know, like scaling back, and it's, you know, that's not necessarily the mentality that artists need to have at this moment. We tried scaling back, and we tried that, and I think at this point, on a DIY basis, we need a little bit higher level of organization.
Yeah.
You know? Let's see. So,
well, it seems like the business model you were speaking of, like, would definitely provides that, you know, especially with, you know, so for like the what does the membership
so
include?
Yeah, I guess going back to that, we realized when we started this membership program, yeah, we're taking a bit of an hourly cut ourselves, right?
Yes.
decent, but we're putting our faith in artists, right? And we're actually giving them not a sound engineer, but a producer working with their project, helping them develop it long term. And, if that's me or if it's somebody else at the studio, right? And that producer that's, working with that artist and investing in there is going to get a producer credit on the album, right? So we're investing in artists by sacrificing some of the short-term gains to help them really realize their project to the fullest extent.
Right.
And then we're betting that at the end of it, we're going to have enough successful artists and we're going to get some back-end royalties off of that and we're going to be okay,
Right.
And
so there's like a bit of curation in what you're doing as well, where it's like, it's not just like
because of that we have to work
hire-
with people that we believe in, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Because it's like, we're spending, however long, artists take, they're all different, but
exactly.
however long you want to take, because, basically,
Mhm.
we're- I'm gonna keep helping you push it forward and stuff, make sure that we're progressing, even if it is taking a long time, There's no shame in taking a couple of years to make an album, as long as, it's the train hadn't stopped for, a year.
Yeah.
So you gotta keep pushing the project forward. So as long as there's progress, this takes a lot of the pressure off. You can just bake it into your monthly budget. Let's say it's split it between you and your band members. Everybody throws in 100.
Mhm.
Can work.
Right.
So yeah, we're excited about it, and the cool thing is when we started it in Houston, we filled up our roster the first month, and nobody's dropped, and we haven't had to worry about any bills.
Yes.
Since the pandemic started, and we have plenty of time to. We only take a certain amount, and then we do have time to take hourly stuff after that.
Yeah.
So, it's like, get your security set up,
Mhm.
then make your profit. It's okay not to maximize every hour. A lot of the ethos of these studios is that we need to maximize every hour. How can we make the most money per hour? And I get that from a business perspective. I do, right?
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to make sure that I maintain a business approach to what it is I'm doing, and most business approaches aren't going to consciously take a pay cut,
Yes. Yes.
So you could consider this, I guess, an abstract business approach, but
Well, it's fitting for the times.
that's what we do.
Yeah. I think
we don't do anything normal. We have like several irons in the fire on all these business ideas, and I guarantee you, none of them are just like down the straight path.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, I think about it too from like, because what you were saying, when we were talking about like constantly needing to get new gear. And like I've been reading this book about called Sacred Economics. And so he was talking about how like, because of the way that our capitalism currently works, that we are supposed to, it's like encouraging us to constantly be buying new things. Oh, you need this gear. Like, oh, I thought I was good with what I had, but apparently I need that, and I need that, and I need that. And he was saying that if we switched up certain things, what we really should be doing is getting to a model where instead of constantly needing new shit, we borrow things. Like, for instance, power tools. Like, it's no reason that everyone on the same block needs, a shovel and a hammer and a this and a that. Like, it could easily have a community
collective teamwork,
thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, obviously there's things we need to involve some level of trust. You can't just have it be free, unfortunately. But like, I think this goes a step further because it creates, like, in a sense, a collective. It's like a bunch of like-minded kinds of people who kind of get along. And then you can have things where it's like, if it's going to be a thing you're using every day, then invest. But if it's not, or maybe you're not sure, well, it's like, well, go over here. We got a bunch of synths. We all can use them. And it's like, here, and you can kind of mess around with it and get a feel for it. Maybe you only need it for one song, It doesn't make sense to buy a whole Prophet synthesizer just for one track, you know, or buy some nice outboard compressor or something. But like,
Wait, what?
yeah, sorry, Chris.
That's okay.
But,
It's
yeah, I
okay.
mean, you're fortunately you share it, you know.
Yes,
That's the thing,
right.
and that's the thing I think with you too, where it's like, you know, and it's moving towards more, because I think in a lot of ways the music industry up till now has been very exploitative. It's the people with the capital using the artists. You know, we all feel the music that we make, and it's emotional for us, and they're just...
and they've kind of got the artists in on it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The artists are now in well, have been on it, you know, where they're like, how do we exploit ourselves? How do we exploit whatever the fuck it is, you know? That
Here's my asshole, take it.
what do we actually have that is our own that we could somehow do something with, you know, like, yeah.
Can we sell it more, though? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we just sell it more?
Yeah, and you said it, I think, when you were talking about building community. Yeah. That's important, you know. Yeah, we're booked in April for a songwriter retreat. So I'm taking all the musicians that are members at our studio, and I'm taking them out, and we're gonna have a songwriter retreat in the woods.
Field
And
day.
it's just gonna be a weekend in the woods, jamming with some of my people from Kerrville that are badass players. And,
Yeah.
And yeah, we're gonna have a good time, and yeah, it's about building family.
Yeah.
You know, like.
I mean, that sounds...
That's what I would recommend to any musician. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like focus on building your family, invest in family, and that means other musicians. You know, like musicians, you know, just have this code. We have a different way of doing things. You know, and we can bond. I feel like in a really deep way with each other that, you know, maybe other people on the outside looking in are just like amazed by it. It's like, how do they have that? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because we give hard, you know?
Yeah.
You listen, right? As musicians,
Yeah.
you have to listen.
You
That's the
have
point,
to
you know.
listen.
It's not just about
A
playing,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also cool because it's like one of the things I've had a lot of struggles with in my music is just being able to find good feedback, like good constructive criticism. You know, it's either like you get someone who doesn't know shit about music or whatever, they're just in the, oh, it's really good, you know. All right, well, is it good enough? Is it this or is it that? You know, is it something you would share? Like all the...
My mom says it's good.
Yeah.
You know, and
Great, yeah.
I love you, all of the moms. It's not anything against
Yeah.
mom. It's a good thing. But yeah, it's like okay, does this sound actually good, or is it you're like a supportive friend or something?
Yeah.
What kind of qualifications are you looking for?
And the thing is, like, in general, even when it's just you're showing things to people, you don't always know if this is like, you know, if someone shows you something, if you're not super close with them, you know, you're not sure how honest they want you to be. But when you have that, like, where it's like a family and it's like, you know, I want, you know, that the feedback, even if it's going to be harsh, is coming from a place of love. And so it can be like, I trust that when they say it's good, it's good. Or when they say it needs work, they want it to be better, not just to cut you down, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And so that's something that really appeals to me.
Well, and here's maybe like an abstract concept too. If you're providing feedback to somebody, you know, I guess hopefully it's so that, you know, you want to build them up, help them out, right, with their stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another way to do that is to immerse that person in a culture where everybody around them is doing excellent work.
Exactly.
They're constantly exposed to it. So literally you can just be excellent in the vicinity of somebody, and that's going to help them elevate, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
That's
without
yeah.
without even having to give them too much advice, and you just pick the right moments to give them advice, you know, when they're most ready to hear it. And
Have you heard it? You know Victor Wooten, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has that whole thing about, like, you know, music is a language. And so the way that you get, you know, like if you look at how you learn languages, you don't just spend all day in a room practicing language. It's like you're a kid, you speak, you know, in our case, English, with people who are masters at, your parents and, maybe siblings and other people. They're all good at English. And so you practice your English with them and you get better. The thing is that we taught music and this, like, you stay in that room and you just practice and get good. But the way you really get good is by playing with other masters of music. And then just, it's like osmosis or something, and you just pick it up. That's something, I feel like I've definitely been missing, in terms of, like, I feel like a lot of my musical growth has been, like, me in my room by myself listening to artists I like, but I wish that I had spent more time or could have found more musicians that are on simpatico with, and it's like we can send tracks back and forth, and we both want to be in the same place, and just like, cool, we're both serious about this and to refine our craft, to go in this direction. And I think that what you're saying sounds fucking awesome,
Yes.
It's basically exposure, and it's basically being around people that are really good. These cultures come about where just, there's dense pockets of really awesome people, and they all elevate each other to a level that other areas can't even get to, just because there's that foundation. And if you're one of those kind of musicians that feels like maybe that is you, maybe I'm spending too much time in my bedroom, I'm too in my own world and in my own mind, and I'm not making music with the outside world, the biggest thing I would recommend, like, off the bat, if you live in Texas, is to go to as many outdoor camping festivals, music festivals as possible.
Right.
And I've, in the last, like, 6-7 years, I started just really, well, I guess I've been going to other shit, but in Texas, let's say in Texas, I just really started hitting, like, a bunch of these camping festivals, pretty hard, and there's live music all over the place, campfire jams, the most intimate settings, and it's elevated my whole world, just connecting with people every time I feel stuck or in a rut or creatively, and I go out to one of these things and just get my mind blown by some people.
Yes.
And, it's like, it reinvigorates me every time.
Yeah.
So, and these outdoor music festivals, I think, are one of the best ways to enjoy your life here in the pandemic. It's outside with musicians who are typically somewhat responsible, at least, I guess, like,
don't make too many bold claims here, okay?
Socially responsible.
They
I don't
may
know.
stick to themselves a little bit more. We'll say that,
when you get a group of them, and everybody's making sure there's no, like, absolute dickheads, like, around, I don't know.
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, if you're into that, like, especially the kind of folk or kind of Americana type things, I mean, you can't beat Kerrville.
Well, dude, I totally wasn't,
Oh,
like,
interesting.
I've always been a jazz guy, kind of, and went, like, R&B, soul, and then a lot of hip-hop, did a lot of hip-hop production, and so I've been kind of in this world for a while, and the songs I was writing definitely are not anywhere near folk or Americana, but I was a songwriter, and just a guy doing it, I'm just making my own songs, I'm writing them, not to follow any form, but just writing what's in my heart, and it feels like folk music, you know what I mean? In its essence. Feels like jazz in its essence, but it also feels like folk music. And when I got out to some of these places, I mean, my sound was obviously very different, but there was a lot of people, I was surprised at the diversity of music I was hearing. It was coming from all over the place, not just kind of one genre or sound. I think that's kind of the cool thing about folk.
Yeah.
Real folk, like folk gatherings,
Right.
Like, folk music is about people gathering. It's not about a sound.
Whether you hammer claw.
Yeah,
It's not
or
about
a
a
genre,
It's not
yeah.
about a
Right.
tonality like.
Right.
Can you make your? It's not about like. It's not about that. It's about getting together and playing songs together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, playing
And-
with people.
Yeah.
And the songs that win over people's heart right there in the moment, no matter what they sound like, those are the fucking folk legends right there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the songs. And I like making music with the spirit of folk
Yeah.
and the spirit of jazz, even if I don't think it really sounds like either of those things.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I totally I feel that because I think in a lot of ways, hip hop it for the communities that it arises in, the various strains of hip hop arise, it does take on that form, even though kind of what we see on the national level. I think, and it's in a lot of the ways. I mean, jazz and blues was that in a different age, and like a lot of these things have risen up. But I think to your point, there's a theory that humans started playing music as a way to kind of get us all on the same page, to help us to cohere as a tribe and a group. And I think that we're running into a lot of this with like copyright. It's like, because music didn't used to be about the individual who necessarily wrote it or came up with it, because a lot of times music is like, it's about bouncing ideas off. Like I play a lick and you hear it, and then you play a lick, and then it's like, or you play a bass line to, or whatever, something complementary, and that's where the music comes in. And
pocket.
Yeah, the pocket.
Yeah.
It's a communal thing. And
That
we're so
inspires
divorced from
other
it.
people to write songs.
Exactly.
Which inspires other people to write songs, which inspires you to write a song,
Mhm.
So it's like all just like synergistic and stuff, and nobody could write that great song if they weren't being constantly inspired by the people around
influenced.
them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the crazy. It's that lone genius thing. I think has been so harmful for music in a lot of ways.
Well,
Yeah.
It can be.
I
Let's see,
view most things with a double-edged sword, and I
Yeah.
think I would also say that my preferred way to write songs is in complete isolation.
Sure.
Like I like going out and getting inspired, but then I like going out into nature, somewhere outside, somewhere by myself, ideally miles away.
Yeah.
But and laying it down out there, but I need solace, and I need the ability to go like extremely in sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some merit, I think, to having the ability of making music on your own.
Yeah.
I think we've always had it, because a song in essence can just be a guitar and vocals or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think it's important still.
Yeah.
It can but both things can be negative if done too much, because I know a lot of people that only participate musically like kind of in group settings. They're only ever gigging or ever playing with people, and they don't actually take the time to go by themselves and really go inward and think. And a lot of these people can jam a million songs maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but they've never written a song, or they don't write a lot of songs. It's hard to get there,
Yeah.
in the
Yes.
midst of everybody being around. So, and then the person that's by themselves a bunch of the time can hit a plateau, where
For sure.
they're done inspiring themselves, and
Right.
they're not,
Yeah.
need some
there.
outside influence,
Well, I think that gets back into it, because it's like, there are certain songs that hit the cultural zeitgeist, and it came from, one person's mind. They came up with it, or whatever, small thing they came. But then I think in order for that song to really hit the zeitgeist, it takes another person to hear it and want to like play it, cover it, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, just naturally, there are people who are going to be more originators. There are people who are more, there are people who, they don't play any music, but they catalog it well. Or like, DJs, like back in the day, especially when it was a craft of DJ. I mean, it still is, but whatever. Like, you know, you had to buy records and gear and stuff, and there's a high barrier to entry. A lot of those DJs, they were just like really into cataloging music and curating music, even though they would never play it. And it's like that's necessary because then you have the guy who's always making it, but he doesn't have time to, or you know, go and search for all the different music and find all the things. They know what they like, they know what they want to say, and they say it. And then you have the other, and it's like that's just part of the community, man. You know, it's like. Right, some people are just to cover, they just need to play other people's songs, and other people only need to write their own song, you know, and it's all different. I just think that it's almost like we as a culture have moved away from music as communities, or that comes from the scene or the community, as opposed to music that just comes. The scene is only cool because this one genius lives in that city, and he inspired everything, and no one else would be anything without him, you know, or whatever.
Well, and when you listen to the language of musicians, you know, everybody's constantly trying to do things more themselves, you know. Oh, you don't need that guy to do that for you. You can do that yourself. Just get it, you know. And and artists figure it's smart when you can do everything yourself, you know. Hey, I can do everything myself. I'm not going to let anybody in on my business. Yeah. I'm going to get 100%. Right. Or as close to it as possible. Yeah. And I get why that is, because everybody's eating crumbs. Yeah. So everybody's like, my crumb. Yeah. You know what I mean? We've all been That's exploited. What musicians are doing. Musicians are trying to hold on to their little fucking crumb. Like, this is my crumb. You can't work with me. You know what I mean? Like,
here's your crumb.
Like, yeah.
You're going to pay you an exposure.
We are also rich in exposure bucks.
Rich in exposure. We're all rich in exposure. Yeah. And poor on bucks. But yeah, it's ultimately not the way that's not how my philosophy goes.
Well, I think it comes back to what you were saying, is like, you guys are musicians yourselves, and it's like you're building this business based on your perspective as the musician on the other side, whereas the music industry as a whole is built by people who aren't musicians, or who necessarily really even care about music or music scenes. And so it's corrupted how most people get into, you know, we all get into it because just want to play, and then after you get screwed over once or twice, you're like, fuck that, you know. Or people get so up their own ass about, you know, copyright, like, you're stealing my song, and it's like, people used to just steal parts from, that's how music got made. I would play a song from you, I'd steal a part, you steal a part. It's just what music works.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I've been thinking about it, and it's been bugging me, like, because the more I've been realizing it, how the people that own the music business, the people that are making all the money, they don't play fucking music.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
They don't play music.
Musicians, by constantly wanting to be the creative and not taking the active role of being the businessman, have handed over the industry to people, and now those people have made themselves gatekeepers. Yeah. And I still see it where new businessmen come into the music industry with a fucking hot mouth, hot attitude. They're ready to make shit happen. They're ready to save music. They're ready to bring it back. It's all about the artist, you know. Yes. And unfortunately, they end up being the rock stars, and they end up making more money than the artists. Yeah. And the money is just being usurped away from musicians. So I've been wanting to make this kind of PSA, but it's like, if you're a musician, take fucking control, you know, like, right. Like, get it together, become your own businessman, and that doesn't mean do everything your fucking self. Yeah. It means start working with people, start creating the ability to have a budget where you can pay multiple people to help you with your project. You know what I mean? If you don't, like, you know, if you don't have the money, and so you're trying to do everything yourself, try to figure out a way to create a real budget for all of your projects and pay people. The more people that you pay, the more that will become the new norm, you know, and you'll get
Right.
your business going. Just keep after it, but.
Well, I think it's like what like kind of goes back to the business model, you know, that you have there. It's like we're not going to change it individually. Like I'm not going to change the music industry, no matter how successful I may get as an artist. We are going to change like as musicians working together and talking about this shit, being open and frank about what we learn and going. You know, when I started out, it was like I had this one idea of how the music industry works, and then you start hearing stories from successful people. You're like, why is that famous ass musician broke? And then you hear about these contracts that they sign that they don't understand anything, and it's like basically just give all of your rights away to a label, and it's like, yeah, you can't even play your own songs now, like the ones that you wrote about your life. It's like, what?
You can have a little bit of Circle C, no Circle P.
Yeah.
But so you've got some hand in if I am correct, you've got a hand in some of the publication stuff. You've got some ideas with that, correct? There's an app. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. We'll go a little abstract here.
That's what we do. We're into crypto.
I'm a sound engineer.
Right.
We pay attention to signal flow.
Okay.
When there's a problem, we find where the source of the problem is. We start with the source. We follow the chain. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Aye. Find the air gap.
Okay. We've identified some kind of problem in the music industry. Let's find the source. Let's start from there. And let's follow the flow of money. Alright? I consider the source to be where the money gets handed off. Right?
From the consumers.
Yeah. I consider the source being when the dollar leaves the consumer's hand.
Aye.
That's the source. Where does that money go? It goes to the streaming service. That's who gets it first.
Mm-hmm.
The streaming service. They are then tasked with reporting it to everybody else.
Correct.
And they're responsible for distributing that money where it needs to go. That's the...
Yeah. No, I mean, and a lot of people have been thinking about that, especially it seems like every time the CEO of Spotify opens his mouth, he just says something that's just, like, it's like you said, not something a musician would say. It's like, no, this is how you have to...
This may be slightly old information, but the streaming industry accounts for 80% of the total music industry.
Makes sense.
know?
Yeah.
Is that because of like playwrights and stuff like that? Is that it's the point of contact at this
That's
point,
because that is where consumers most consistently spend their dollars.
Yeah.
You know? They spend 120 of them, you know, on platforms a month.
Right.
You know? And hundreds of millions. And it all goes to that one central place. No one artist really pulls in money like that, you know?
Right. It's not even a CD, it's supplemental.
Yeah, there's kind of, you know, you could probably say that there's slight problems all the way down the chain. But following the chain, I'm already immediately seeing an issue, right? And most people are. I think even if you're not a musician, you have some idea of the fact that musicians, at least, are unhappy with the way that they're getting compensated, right? And the fans don't support the streaming services. They support the artists. They don't give a fuck about the streaming service. Mm-hmm. They just go on the streaming service because their artists that they love and support are on there.
Right.
So, if the artists are saying, you know, we don't feel accurately compensated through these services, then that tide is going to turn against them, the services. And no matter what the reality is about how generous these services or not are,
right.
There's this social opinion that it's not right. And it's not. And we can do better. We can constantly do better. We can always do better.
Yeah.
Even after I get my idea out there should be something better after that. You know?
That's why I'm so excited about like the possibilities of like crypto. And I think we've talked a little bit about it. And the thing is, there have been people who have tried, there've already been like maybe 3 or 4 kind of crypto based music streaming platforms. And yeah, no, I don't think they all each have their problems. A lot of them stem because they're not really decentralized and various things. We should probably do a deep dive on that at some point. There are some that are pretty cool, but yeah, they run into the network effect, I find. But I mean, the promise of it is that you have a network that is not controlled by any single person. So there's no censorship. There's no like, oh, your music is very niche, so we're not going to support it or this or that.
Correct.
It's like, and you're allowed to, anyone, it's democratic, so anyone can put their music up there. You don't have to go through any gatekeepers. But the way that the money gets spent is that like your attention is where your money goes. Like, for instance, currently with Spotify, like the way they split it is not that like, if I go to Spotify and I only listen to death metal, my money's not only going to death metal artists that I like. My money's going to Spotify, who then divvies it up over the various popularity of their on their platform overall. So even if I never listen to, say Justin Bieber or whoever, the top 10 most famous artists on Spotify, even if I never listen to them, some of my money is actually going to them. And I think SoundCloud just is trying to flip that model, and they're making it more egalitarian. But I mean, ideally, our money's not really going to pay anyone but the people but the artists, because like these streaming services are taking 30% at least. It's like you could have something that's decentralized where the people who upkeep it, they get a little thing for the work they do, and maybe there's different algorithms for bringing you music or something, and you could exchange that. But there's definitely a much better system that could be in place that's not exploiting the artists who are putting all the content there, making it a cool place to be.
Mm-hmm. Man, I have a friend that I want you to meet and talk with, because he was telling me some really awesome ideas that he had in the crypto world.
Interesting. Yeah.
His name is Tyler.
Tyler?
And he was showing me some crazy shit last night. I was like, damn, you need to meet Aaron. You guys would.
Yeah, let's get him on.
You guys would have a 10-hour conversation. 10. Like,
we have enough disk space.
Yeah.
Let's see here. It's a lot, so much info, and it's exciting, and at this point it's kind of all theoretical.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is that a lot of people have told me when I kind of talk about my ideas, like about the viability of the business, being like, well, yeah, the market's grown to 80%. It's already saturated. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's true. The streaming industry is already saturated.
Mm-hmm.
But then I see the social problem that these streaming services have.
Yes.
And I see the people turning against them. So what I really see is a market vacuum.
Yeah.
There's a lot of real estate that could possibly free up in the future,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm generous with sharing my ideas, and being open and honest. You know, I not like holding on. You know, holding shit back from the world. That's, you know, just I guess in the interest of pushing humanity forward or something. You know, it's just kind of what us musicians do. You know, how we think. You know, but at the same time, I do know that, you know, you got to be first to market with these ideas, right? So I always live by shut up and make it happen, you know.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Get it fucking out there. So, that being said, got some cool ideas about this streaming site. It's much more than it sounds or seems. When people tell me about a music streaming site, I'd fucking yawn. You know? And that's what I'm excited about. But you need some funding.
Yeah.
You know? Funding is the key. And it's a matter of time before we get it, because everybody who I've shown this idea to is just, you know, they light up. And I know we got something special. So, need somebody with some money and the love of music and the balls to make some shit happen in this world to come join.
Yeah.
You know? We'll make it happen.
For sure.
Real.
When I say I need somebody with the balls to come make this dream happen with me, I'm fucking praying it's a fucking woman with this money.
Yeah.
It's just like, come work with me.
Well, I think, you know, also, and I don't know, you know, what like your thoughts. I mean, obviously, you know, the way you structure it and all that stuff affects that, but there's definitely also the possibility of like opening the idea up to like crowdsourcing, where it's like if you get enough musicians and you kind of just describe this system, and that's sort of what a lot of people talk about with you know, with say some of the crypto spaces. It's like the technology is open source because it's all essentially decentralized, but they design into it incentives to be the person who's controlling it or working on it or developing it. You know, it's like if you develop a thing, like you get compensated for it. Whereas right now the thing is like there's no way, you know, if you open source your project and you let go of your IP, it's like, hey, we're just gonna steal it, you know, and then you end up making no money and you're like, I did all this work and there's nothing there. And I think one of the really exciting ideas of crypto is that it allows you to be more open with your ideas and to be able to share it so that other people can take it and innovate the same way music works. You know, you teach other people your song, you know, so that they can play it with you. Not, you know, it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not going to teach you the song because then you can play the song and you'll steal it. It's like, no, like, but that idea is like to take it there, but then in a way that you don't get shafted and you actually still get compensated for coming up with, for innovating and working hard and adding something of value, you know?
Okay, so if you were to implement these ideas on a platform, right, who are the specialists that would be needed?
To like do this?
Yeah, to actually implement.
I guess, yeah. I mean, you would probably, similar to like any kind of app, you would need people who know the programming languages and in that. I mean, you do the same kind of thing, but there would be platforms. Say if you did it on, I don't know, Ethereum, for instance, you would find someone who could learn the programming language or who already knows it, and then you just kind of craft. You essentially would design the platform in a way that facilitates it, you know. But I mean, it would be kind of the same thing as an app. I think it's the same kind of idea. You're talking to network people, you're talking to graphic designers, user designers, and then you're talking about, you know, and ideally all of those people also have an interest in the industry that you're making it for. Hence, in this case, music. So it would be, you want graphic designers or user designers who are into music, so that they think about, well, or at least they love consuming music. It's like, well, what do I want as a consumer? And then when you're thinking about the business side, I think it's super important for it to be musicians. Like, if I'm submitting music to a platform, what do I want? You know? And I think a lot of platforms now, they're not designed for that. They're designed for businessmen, you know? Not
Yeah.
people who are like, I made this thing, I really want to, I feel like it needs to be out in the world, I worked really hard, I put my heart and soul into it, you know? And they just kind of make it this whole, like, hustle. Like, you know, it's gotta be, like, made in the past month or whatever. It's gotta be new, it's gotta be fresh, no one cares about your bullshit, no one, can't be long, it's gotta fit in this format, there's blah, 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 all this other shit. And it's like, I'm not making music for fucking everyone. I'm making music for my community, for the, you know, there's a thing this guy Seth Godin talks about where if you're creative, no matter what you do, he says instead of trying to find the maximal audience, try to find the minimum viable audience. What is the least amount of people you need to essentially get the lifestyle you want? You know, like, oh, you like the have you heard of the concept 1,000 true fans?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like you don't need 1,000,000 fans. If you can get 1,000 people to give you $100 a year, that's $100,000. And it's like, this thing is like, that's a good living. And, you know, by no means do you need that. It's still pretty high, but it's like, you don't need to get 1,000,000 fans. You just need 1,000 people who believe in you enough to that they will buy your art. They will support you. They will do your thing. And yeah, it's hard to do it, but it's like such a game changer in terms of how you approach your craft. Like, look for the community that you seek to serve. And so it's like trying to figure out ways to do that. And I think that can be tough, especially in the Spotify game, because it's not regional. Spotify's not regional at all. It's just you're competing against everybody in the world. So it's not like I can make music and only shoot it towards people in Austin or whatever, or people in Texas, which I think could really help, because you could have a whole career, you know, just serving your local community, playing shows for people, and it's like your local hero. And that's been scrubbed, and I feel like that's where we've really lost something there. And I think that possibility could come back, because like, I think one of the coolest things that you talk about in all these ideas just through our conversations is the idea of curation. And I think you had mentioned that's the thing that's really lacking in these large platforms. Like, yeah, there are playlists and stuff, but I think,
Yeah, what are those playlists overrun with?
Yeah, well, yeah, and who decides? It's like the Spotify-based playlist, which is actually made, you know, either made by some sort of AI or it's made by a human, whatever. But that's still one person. And there's, like, what if I want to listen to the dude that I met, you know, like the DJ I just heard, and it's like, dude, you play a bunch of cool shit. And he's like, oh yeah, it's all local music. I play all local people. It's like, well, I want to know what you curate. You know, I want to know what you like. I love your music. And then it's like, well, who else do you listen to? And you're like, oh yeah, let me show you. I got people. Like, this is my buddy that I play with. This is my... And it's like, we lost... Because like, how am I going to find your playlist on Spotify? You know, how am I going to connect with it? And it's such a thing, because like you said also, Spotify is really about, you know, it's treating music like a TV show. It's like, you just got to keep... It's a thing. You got to keep putting music out every month if you want to stay relevant on Spotify. That's what the CEO has said.
Yes.
And I do see some logic in that idea of like treating music like a practice, because I think you get better that way. But that being said, it's like sometimes you put a lot of work into a very large cohesive piece, say an album, say a soundtrack or whatever. You know, and you're like, I've really been working on these songs and revisiting them and doing this thing that I can't just put one song out every month. It's like, I want to really craft something, and that takes time. And the thing is, Spotify is not designed to support those musicians. It's designed to support, like, put a song out fast, get it out, do it, move on to the next thing. What's fresh, what's new, what's hot, you know, can you copy them? You know, I think over the long run, it's going to de-incentivize innovation, you know?
I believe in timeless music more than anything. Timeless music could come out next year.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm betting that it does.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And that's what we're trying to promote. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Timeless music over trendy music. You know? And we have some idea of what makes music timeless, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We have our perception of what makes music timeless. And I think people will agree.
Yeah.
You know, I think about why do people like the music artists that they like? Why do they? It's because they were exposed to them.
I think it's cultural,
You know,
a lot of it, you know?
Well, I mean, just right off the bat, right, is like, you got to be exposed to them.
Yeah.
Some kind of way.
Yeah, that's true.
Your favorite artist is out there right now, and you've never listened to never heard them. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
Like, that's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the idea. You know, is like...
That hit pretty close,
Your favorite album that, you know, that you would love just to death is out there right now. You hadn't heard it yet, because you hadn't been exposed.
It's a crazy thought, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And you only like artists, really, because you're comparing them to what else you've been exposed to. You're like, I didn't like that stuff, but I like this stuff more, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But exposure.
Yeah.
Exposure.
Exposure.
We're talking about, I think we're getting onto something here with this whole conversation. It's about the right kind of exposure, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Exposure coin. I mean, it's gotta be. It's gotta be. Now we can finally.
Exposure
pay
coin.
Yeah, we can
dude,
pay you
actually,
exposure.
dude, all right, that is actually kind of genius. This idea got created on camera.
Yeah, right here.
So you know where it came from. This did not come from anybody else.
Even thirds.
Yeah.
Exposure coin. That's fucking hilarious. That's like every music. That's music currency right
Yeah,
there.
uh-huh.
Dude, that is fucking genius. Just on the name alone. I don't even give a fuck about any of the mechanics of anything.
We do
Just
have
on
to make a meme.
on
of
the name
that,
alone,
yeah.
that's just like fire. Like exposure coin.
Exposure
Every
coin.
musician can get behind that.
Yo, yeah.
Exposure coin.
Exposure coin.
Got a whole
Well,
lot of experience.
I don't know if
That's-
every
that's the
musician,
theme of
but every
today.
promoter will. I could just pay you an exposure.
That's the theme of the day, man. Exposure. Exposing yourself to good music. You know? Like, don't let anybody else offer you exposure. Go expose yourself.
Yeah.
You know? Yes.
Well, and I think, yeah, because, like, one of the things that was frustrating to me as, like, a DJ here in Austin is it's, like, so, for instance, it's really, and it's by no means easy, but there's definitely, like, an infrastructure for DJs, like, in Europe, like, in Germany and stuff. For one, they have a lot more clubs, but they also have a lot more density of cities. So, it's, like, you can just drive 50 miles and you're in another city with a club that you can play at. So there's a circuit. Here in Austin, there's 8 to 10 clubs you could possibly DJ at, and some of them only want to play a certain kind of music or whatever. They have one night. And so the opportunities are severely limited. And then where else are you going to play? You maybe go to San Antonio, very limited there. It's a huge city. You could drive 3 hours to fucking Dallas, 3 hours to Houston, 10 hours to El Paso, where it's hard to do it. And it's rough because the gigs that you get here pay maybe, unless it's a very high, white,
High-end,
black
right.
tie, high-end crazy event, you're getting paid $60 usually, for normal club nights. And it's that's really not sustainable. And it's the only real option, it seems like, as a DJ or maybe a producer, is you got to get out of the state. You got to start moving to or not moving, but traveling to other states and playing shows all over the place. So it's in order for it to be sustainable, you got to expand. Mm-hmm. And it sucks because it really should be that if you want to serve a community and there's enough people, you should be able to make a living in your city. And I don't know, maybe that's a should. I don't know, because people have been saying you want to do it, you got to move to New York or LA. Shut up and just do it. The reason you haven't done it is because you probably don't believe it's But
yeah.
I want to get back to that idea that you could be a local musician and really find a community here, and that you're able to prioritize not having to fucking bust your ass traveling and shitty plane flights and not seeing your friends or family because you're constantly in new towns pushing it. Some people love that, and that's fine, but I think there should be other ways to support a music practice that
Yeah.
builds a community here.
Touring is kind of much like the studio. It's like, and much like the rest of music, it's the practice of breaking even.
And enjoying catering.
Running a studio is the practice of breaking even. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is just running a business as an artist.
Yeah.
Your own business. It's just the nature of the reality, and I guess if you're focused on money doing music, there's not a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
That is correct. They always told me, you want to work in someone else's studio, don't get your own. I didn't listen to them at all, and now I've got some gear. I've got some gear. It looks pretty.
It's a double-edged sword in itself.
Yeah. Sure. There's plenty of gear out there. I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, because you're like the possibilities is like you come in here, you're like, I want to build a space here in Austin, and it's just like all of a sudden, you're having this reception because so many people. There are tons of people like Chris, and like, it's like they're sitting on gear. It's like, I got gear,
yeah,
but nothing to do with it. It's hard because it's like when you're
Right.
just a one-person show, like you might have a bunch of gear, but you need people to help set it up. You need this, and so it's like. Yeah, that's what's really exciting is if you can find a community-based sort of studio, like it's a place where we can all have our gear where it can get used, not just collect dust, but then, like it generates, profit, but then it also builds a culture. It's like, oh, we had all these types of, because the gear also helps determine what kind of art you make. And so that's what's really, it's like you're finding people with like Neve gear, like there's like all these people, and it's like, if we all collaborate on this studio, we can have one of the sickest studios, and it's a place where we can all get together and share feedback, jam together, vibe, create a culture, like beyond just, pay us per hour, we'll come in, I'll twist the knobs.
Right.
All
Make
right.
sure you're not hitting
Done.
red.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. My friend commented on my Facebook post today, saying, "Oh, great! Just what Austin needs, another recording studio."
Yeah, no, it's kind of true.
And I, obviously just had to laugh at that. It's like tough sell, but how many of these studios are offering memberships? I don't know, and it's kind of a simple thing to do. I imagine that once this little idea catches on, you're gonna see a general shift in the industry, but it's okay because it's going to shift towards servicing artists more.
Exactly. That's the thing is like
and these studios kind of work against the artists a little bit because studios need artists to pump out really successful albums so that the studios, it elevates the studio's name.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it gets notoriety.
But then, they charge these artists as much as they can, and they work with artists that they don't really believe in. You know what I mean? And so it's an opportunity cost to themselves even doing that because they're not spending the time making that record that's going to get them notorious. Now, maybe it's the case where they are and they don't even realize it.
Like Dimmu Borgir at Abbey Road.
But then you're just a work-for-hire studio. You didn't really help elevate this artist's career. You just had a sound engineer being a yes man for an artist, And so that artist doesn't really give you that much credit. You didn't actually help out that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you really help them out by by spending some real time with them, working with them, grinding with them for a year on it, whatever it takes.
Well, because that's, and that's the, unsung hero of a lot of music is, either the engineer or, the producer. But a lot of times, especially in some of those classic records from the 70s and 60s and stuff, those, you had a brilliant musician, say the Beatles, right? The Beatles had a bunch of great ideas, but there's no way in hell those records would be so great and iconic if it wasn't for these amazingly creative engineers and George Martin, the producer,
George Martin, the
who
fifth
would
Beatle.
go along with their idea and then figure out how to do it. And sometimes you may have an artist who's got a ton of great ideas, but and I can speak like this. Mixing is hard, and it's hard to learn to mix in your fucking bedroom. But like if I come here and I got some ideas and I bring it to you, and it's like you hear it and you're hearing for what it could be, not for what it is, and you're like, I see what you're doing. Let me show you. Like, how about we try this? And it's like, I want my voice to sound like that, and you're like, oh, here's a good idea. And it's like, then you allow people who maybe they're not that good at songwriting, but they're really good at, producing, or, like Rick Rubin, for instance, he doesn't write songs, but that dude knows about like helping artists bring out the best in an artist. Or maybe you're really good with the gear and it's like,
to it at some point.
Yeah. No, but like and I think that's what's missing, and for a lot of the studios, like what you're saying, and because then you can even get studios that are geared and designed for maybe specific kinds, where it's like, you want to get into dubstep or whatever. Well, there's a studio for that, or like there's a certain vibe and a sound, like, and you just start hanging out with these guys. They maybe it doubles as an event space sometimes or whatever, and then you build a whole vibe, a community around it. I don't know why some studios, like, they should all be starting podcasts, making YouTube videos, talking about, like, like, you combine it. So it's a multi-faceted thing, multiple income streams, multiple ideas. And then then it's like, oh, this studio also had a hand in creating this app. And it's like, all of these other things, that's how you get a studio that's not, like, having to charge an arm and a leg just to use it. It's because they're making money from other things, like...
Well, everybody's got the reason for...
Yeah.
Not doing things. I don't put out a lot of content, you know.
Yeah.
We do not put out a lot of content as a studio. We're, still pretty private, I guess, at this point. But just a large part of me just doesn't even feel like participating in the rat race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like expending all this effort to chase these fucking streams and streaming royalties, and it applies to YouTube too. And it is, I'm not knocking the people making videos, because they're doing good stuff. They're creating income for each other and getting a following.
Fucker.
Doing good shit. Right. Doing good shit.
You're offending us? Yeah.
Doing great shit, man. It's just, it's not my way. I'm gonna have plenty of content to put out when I release my platform, and I'm gonna feel good that,
Yeah.
It's being directed in a way that I think is okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, for sure.
So I guess everybody's got their reasons, and we all need to create more content, generate more content.
Yeah.
But,
or it's just you need whatever feels right, Yeah. And I have found my own personal thing, like when I commit to finishing things more often and just shipping it, my work has much more greatly improved. And there is something to, I get real precious if I work on a song. It's that weird bias. I forget what it's called, but there's a bias. Like, if you've spent, 100 hours on this song, you're more likely to be like, oh, it's got to be tweaking this and that, or whatever. And it's like, you're going to think that song is better than this other one that you wrote in 5 minutes, because you put 100 hours into this one and revised it 1,000,000 times. And then that other one, everyone else here is like, that one's better. And you're like, but, it's that weird thing. Like, it helps you to get over that. But that being said, I do think that there can be too much pressure, because there is burnout when you're constantly like, we need to put out an album, we need to put out another, we need to keep touring, we need to do 100 dates this year, we need to do this, we need to do that. And it's like,
right.
That is also that there's that middle ground. And I think, you're totally right. You don't need to be constantly like putting shit out. There's a balance, it's like, put shit out and try to focus on finishing and making a great product, but don't burn yourself out. It's not worth it,
Yeah. Right.
Like, and I think our culture now is geared towards grind,
Yeah. It's okay to be a human and
yeah.
decompress and take some time off and relax and spend a little time in solitude, writing, spend a little time with people, jamming.
Dude, I like what you were saying,
to it.
like tuning out. I want that so bad sometimes. It's just like, I just want a cabin in the woods with no internet, so I could just work on my fucking music and just like no one talks to me. I just like can just zone in and just like make it. That's
you really
like
have to
such a dream.
actively seek those experiences. You know what I mean? Because you like as your schedule fills up, you get busier and busier, and you know you work. And then you're gonna have to like probably turn down money to do such a retreat. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like
But that's the thing. Like,
you gotta do.
There's a guy I follow named Kyle Cease, and he talks a lot. So one of his things is like meditate for an hour a day, or meditate for 2 hours a day, kind of thing. And he'll even meditate for 4 or 8 hours. And people say this kind of, how could you do that? What all that time you're wasting? He's like, thing about it is with a lot of these kinds of investments, you can only see what you'll lose. You can't see what you'll gain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the thing is like taking time. You're like, I'm gonna take space and be alone and spend money maybe to rent an Airbnb somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. It's like, yeah, you can see that it's going to cost you money and opportunities and you're turning down gigs and whatever. But you don't know. You might come back with something totally like that you didn't expect that makes you a superstar or whatever, makes you a ton of money or gets you a ton of work. Like more than if you had been hustling at home or whatever. And it's that same thing. It's learning to trust that inner part of you that you don't know what's there, the source, you know, that creativity that is in all of the world, you know, the universe.
Yeah, and sometimes, as they say, a sacrifice is owed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I definitely come back from a lot of these trips, you know, broker, but with maybe a crazy ass long or some kind of experience or something, you know.
Broker but woker.
Broker but woker.
Broker but woker. Put it on the hat.
We'll have him next week. Yeah.
Actually, man, coming up with some good ideas today, man.
You're on fire.
You're on fire.
It's just the tea. I mean,
we got a clothing line. We got a new kind of crypto. We got a streaming service. We got it over here, man.
Yeah. Keep it locked. Big developments over here. Big developments.
Anyone listening, come invest.
Yeah.
Join us.
It's time. It is clearly time.
Well,
See
cool.
these fake plans? We need real ones. Let's go.
Let's.
All right. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. We're definitely have to get you back here, man. Yeah, this was super fun. Once again, thanks for doing this. I'm glad I met you. Like, I can't wait. We're gonna work and do some cool shit together. I'm super excited. This is just the beginning, man. So thanks again.
Let's do it. Yep.
Boom.
Bye, everybody.